Why corporate India must invest in art, literature and culture.
So for this, I'm requesting Prasad Hegde, Nisarga, Sabin Iqbal and Aravind Chinchure will be the moderator. So requesting you all on stage, please. Aravind sir, over to you.
Namaskara ellarige. So day one of Book Brahma Literature Festival, 3 p.m. and I see still there are people who want to listen and sit in the auditorium. So thank you for everyone here, present for this particular session. This is a very different topic. Why corporate India must invest in art, literature and culture. Generally, I have seen, or most of us feel that this is something to do with corporate. Of course, it has some connection with art, literature and culture. But very, very important topic, because if we want to really look at the future as a nation and also about individual, this particular session will be of immense value to all of you. And of course, we will try and see whether we can convince you to embrace art, culture, literature, irrespective of what you do. But most importantly, we want to ensure that the corporates invest more and more into this particular much needed space. So let me start with my introduction or my connect to art. By training, I'm a scientist, I'm a physicist. You may be wondering, why a physicist should be sitting here and moderating a panel, and what is my connect to art, literature and the culture. For this particular session, I was just reflecting, where did I began to appreciate art in my life? And the best thing that ever happened in my life was the opportunity to do PhD in physics at Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. Not Tata Institute here in IISc, but Tata Institute of Fundamental Research in Mumbai. And if anyone has ever heard of TIFR, I'm the founder, Dr. Homi Bhabha. Dr. Homi Bhabha was an art connoisseur, or somebody who appreciated art so much, being a scientist. And if you enter that space of Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, where most of us were physicists and mathematicians and biologists, but you feel that you are entering into a space that's a art museum. And Dr. Bhabha collected some of the finest art and artifacts and sculptures of 50s and 60s, and that exist even today. And every day as a scientist, we had that possibility to appreciate that particular art and see how we can get inspired to do better science and better, physics or maths or whatever subject that we were in. That was my first introduction to art, and I grew up. I spent almost 10 years in that particular space, creative space, being a scientist. And after science, I ventured into corporate world. I worked with 3 Fortune 500 corporates, both Indian and multinational companies. I had a little bit different experience. They were world-class organizations. The space were very functional, well lit, but somewhere there was this gap or missing that art and the culture was not evidently present in those workspaces. So now today's topic is, how do we make sure that not just our companies support or curate and enable and empower art and culture, but also see that how our cities, our nation can become a cultural capital for the world. So with this introduction, we have some remarkable panelists. It's very, very difficult to describe them in a couple of words, But let me start with Dr. Nisarga. You know, he's a doctor. He was the gold medalist in MCH. You know, he's the first person, ranked number 1 to study cardiology. And today he's sitting here, by the way, in Art and Literature Festival. So he conducted some of the most complex heart operations. He heads cardiology department at KIMS, Hyderabad. In fact, he's the first doctor in the world to do heart operation when the patient is alive. That's what Dr. Nisarga is there. And he is passionate about photography and other things, and he's an award-winning photographer. Of course, he will introduce more. Sabin Iqbal, what an incredible person, and boom, we can all connect. He's a journalist, started career as a journalist, then he's a novelist, an award-winning novelist. But most important is he's the curator of Literature Festival, not only in Kerala, by the way, not only in India, but right now he's in UAE and also doing some incredible work in Europe and so on. He can bring deeper insights about why corporate must invest in art and culture. And then we have Mr. Prasad Hegde. You know, we were listening to his work being part of a Wipro. He led Wipro in multiple capacities. He built institutions within Wipro, created and supported art. And it will be very interesting to hear the perspectives from him, you know, what needs to be done to further investment in art, culture, and literature. So with this panelist, let me start because, you know, this is a heavy corporate kind of a topic. It's very important that we start with a very lighter way. And the first question that I want to ask everyone is, how did art came into your life? And what happened after that art came into your life? Briefly, I think this is another kind of a creative, you know, introduction to yourself so that those stories can really inspire others with Dr. Nisarga.
Namaste. So basically, when I got an invitation, I was wondering why I've been called by Satish Chaparike to this prestigious and beautiful event. Then I realized maybe there is an art inside me. That's how I would have called. Because I'm not a corporate doctor. Maybe I'm working in a corporate hospital. That may be another reason for Satish to consider me to this event. Then I asked him whether it will be in English or Kannada, because I'm a Kannada person. Then he told, no, it's in English. Now I realize what is the reason for him to call me to this English event. Because his wife was my English teacher in pre-university. Jokes apart. So, when this chapter, last chapter happened, Book Brahma Festival, I was fortunate to become a patron in a very small way. So that time my photo was displayed in the board outside this building. Soon after that, I got many calls, messages to my mobile saying that, "Arey, you're there." Then now I realize the reason for this topic, the answer for this topic. If you patronize in art, you'll be visible outside. Yeah. So to your question, I always asked whether I'm an artist as a doctor. That question is still there with me. Yes, there is some amount of art inside me. Being born in a place near Sagar, Shimoga, being a Hegodian, as a kid watching Rashoman, Bicycle Thieves, Samskara, Gata Shraddha, repeatedly as a kid, being in touch with theatre arts as a kid, being in touch with literary giants in Canada, most probably, obviously, an artist Aya has been born inside me. That's what I feel. And when it comes to the heart, I'll explain you in detail later.
We'll get
Yeah.
to that. Yes. Sabin, how did you? Yeah.
Thanks. I was born in a family which is very progressive, and my grandfather had one of the first newspapers in Kerala. And he was a writer all my uncles, and we all like, from a family of letters. So it's natural I turned to humanities. So I started to write, then I became a journalist. But my turning point into real art happened when I worked with Kochi Mistress Binale as an editorial director of the first thing. Then I started to see these artists up close and started to study the history of Kerala, and that fascinated me and drew me closer to the world of art. And even before that, when I was a journalist in Dubai, I chanced upon a Times literary supplement which had a feature on Hay on Wye, the literature festival in Wales. So that moment, that evening, this bug of being a curator, being part of a literature festival, bit me. So it's still there. Then I quit mainstream journalism and I wanted to start curating literature festivals. And I worked with Dr. Tharoor. We created a brand like Books on the Beach. We actually wanted to promote a beach, popular beach in Trivandrum, Kovalam. I worked on it for six months, but so passionately bringing people together. But that festival never took off. So, because the change of government, then sponsorship backed out. I mean, the government was supposed to sponsor it. So it never took off. Then I met the owners of the Madhurabhumi group. So they asked me to curate the festival. Then I got into the last 8 years, I've been into this, and now I can't get out of it. So, this is, but if you ask me why art, and it's been in my blood, and I was born into the family of art and cultures, all that aesthetic sensibility.
So over to you, Hari.
I have no claim to any talent in art. I'm just a ever curious person, right? And I spent a long, about 2 decades in my earlier role with a large corporation, which sort of, and greatly empowering corporation. So I was fortunate. I also sat on the CSR arm of Wipro for good a decade and a half as a trustee. So I'm somewhere at the intersection of art, corporate philanthropy, and the question why corporates must invest is an interesting question for me.
Yes.
So I will give you all, if at all, if there are opportunities, some examples of why not, how, what are the positives and the potential downsides to it, and how do you ring fence it? Those would be the areas that I would be happy to comment on.
Yeah, thank you. So let's start with you, Hari, because this is about corporates. It's not about why they must invest in art, culture, and literature. So being from a corporate world, led and being a trustee of CSR. One of the trustees. So we were looking at the data. The data is very, very surprising, at least to me. So India CSR spends around 30,000 crore rupees a year, approximately. And 44% of that money goes to education and livelihood. Very, very important for nation as India. The next 30+% goes to healthcare, which is also very, very important. Can you guess how much CSR money goes to, under CSR, there is a category called heritage, art and culture. Can you guess, anyone? What percentage of CSR money goes to heritage, art, culture? 5%? Any? So it is less than 1.5%. Of course, the question is, education, livelihood matters a lot for India, healthcare matters a lot India, but it does not mean that art, heritage, culture doesn't matter to India. So, Hari, why, this kind of a or small contribution from CSR or from corporates to heritage, art and culture?
Yeah, I'll add a little more to that number. Out of that 30,000, about 18,000 comes from listed companies, right? And I'm adding these numbers because these numbers will be relevant for some of the remarks that I'll make later. And if you take the listed 18,000, the top 10 companies in India make for almost 34% of the 17 or 18,000. And if you take the 30,000, then it'll be about 20%. It'll be good for us to bear this number in mind when we are talking of, how does art and corporate philanthropy in art plays out, and what could be the positives and the consequences of it, right? Now, to answer your question, why? I think there are a number of reasons for it. One is essentially a large part of our Indian population is still poor. And if you look at the public healthcare infrastructure, public education infrastructure, they've all sort of gone down in terms of their own capacities, and hence access to it is an issue. So that is the gap that naturally sort of takes precedence over others. One. And honestly, I have been in a position where been in a difficult spot, I would say, where one would say no to a good argument somebody is making, why don't you support this? And I'll tell you, my typical response is to be, look, there are 100 good things to do. There are 5 that we have chosen, and we are deeply focused on it. That used to be, of course, subsequently, Wipro did include art as part of its, areas that it would sort of invest. But the fact of the matter is we are largely a country with very low access to education, healthcare, and so these things matter, hence the priority. The second one, the sectors like these, livelihood, education, healthcare and wash, disaster, all of these make to almost about 60-65% of the contribution. These are little easy to understand, right? And easy to intervene in a systematic manner. Art is somewhat abstract. So how do you support art, and what vehicle do you use to do that is also a slightly more, I wouldn't say just difficult, out of sync question for somebody who is on a business role, right? That is also something that we need to keep in mind, right? These are, I think, the two reasons I would say.
Very important, Hari. I think you brought very important points why that less than 1.5% priority is for education, livelihood, and healthcare. And then, of course, how do I really systematically invest and know that there is an impact, there is an outcome? Sabin, I will come to you now. See, Sabin, we are as CSR or corporates are investing in education, healthcare. Eventually that connects our livelihood, that connects to the development, right? Development which converts into economy. So, and of course, the second part is that tangibility of invested amount in art culture. You have been, curator of several art culture festival, not only in India, but now you are going into Europe and you have you know exactly why in certain geographies, for example, if I look at Singapore or Dubai, for example, how Dubai is looking at that economy, art, culture, and so on. So how do you respond to what Hari said?
Yeah, thanks, Aravind. See, I look at it in a very different perspective. I don't look at the investment from corporates into art and culture under the umbrella of CSR. I want this investment taken out of CSR because CSR is invariably corporate social responsibility. It's their responsibility to build society, support society, to improve the societal standards and the livelihood, so on. So that which is commendable. We all appreciate that. But at the same time, my argument is to invest in art, culture, literature as business.
Not just as a social.
Not just as CSR, because CSR comes with another, the goodness part of it, the commitment, the social responsibility. That's good. We need that. We need, because you just mentioned that India is poor and all that. But I'm looking at the entirely different way. Art, literature, culture can be a good field to invest, because there is branding that will give back. Now we say the ROI is intangible. If we invest in art and culture and literature, it's intangible. But I argue that there will be a time, if we work together, that this ROI can be tangible. And I come from I live in a region where they invest billions and billions into art culture to build. We were discussing to turn an entire island into an art island, cultural island, bringing Guggenheim, Louvre, all sort of thing, spending billions of dollars. Why? The question is why? Yes, they have money, but they're looking beyond the post fuel, the post oil era, and they find art and culture and literature are important areas to invest in.
Absolutely.
So that's my argument.
Very interesting, because I have been part of a corporate, not just I was a scientist, but I worked in a corporate. When I look at why art, culture matters or literature matters to the corporate is, number one, even corporates want to create something, right? Create new products, new solutions, solve the problems. It's all about creation. And the best way you can get inspired or learn the art of creation is from the arts, right? That's number one. Second is if you want to attract the best minds or best talent, that best talent looks at that culture of art and investment in art and social and so on. And third, which is very important, Sabin, you touched, possibly you will touch, is a brand differentiation. As a brand, how do you want to differentiate in the market? And art culture investment immensely helps. And here is an example. Dr. Nisarga is an example how art has played a role not only to be a good doctor, also create that space or a health care or a care as a sector. So we would like to hear how that has played. It's a direct example of a impact and value of art in the profession or a sector like a healthcare.
Art and heart. There are only two letters which differentiate art and heart, H and E. But both are connected to one thing, emotions. You may be not knowing, although heart is directly connected to emotions and feelings, heart is numb to touch. It doesn't have its own sensation. If you touch it, doesn't sense it. Yeah. Heart beats about 3 billion times in a lifetime. 3 billion times. And it pumps into the circulatory system. That circulatory system, all are joined. If it is joined, if it comes to almost like 60,000 miles, it pumps into that system. Huh? That itself is an art. So heart is a beautiful, magical machine of nature. It's the most celebrated organ in the human body. So when I become the heart surgeon, I feel other things about the heart. See, heart has got a beautiful rhythm. That rhythm is like a rhythm of a song, a rhythm of a dance. I'm so consumed by that rhythm sometimes. See, there are two types of doing a heart operation in a coronary artery operation. One is doing a beating heart surgery when the heart is naturally beating with its own good rhythm. Second is to stop the heart, connect the heart to a bypass machine where the heart lung machine will be doing the job. That time you can do the surgery. I'm so used to the beating heart. When there is a need to stop the heart, I lose that rhythm. I become uncomfortable. So the art plays there. Yeah, that rhythm is connected to the mind. Second thing, whenever I do a heart surgery, I see that art plays in each and every step. When you lift the heart, there is an art. When you cut the heart, there is an art. When you resuture, there is an art. Yes. After some time, you'll be able to read the heart. Whether it is shy, whether it is irritable. Literally. After a few years of experience, you can literally read the heart. Each heart is different. So that communication with the heart can be built with an art inside. Yeah.
So, in fact, now I want to
I'll-
how does by heart, emotion of heart. But, Dr. Nisarga, you are
One
there
more
are
thing,
many
one more
doctors,
thing.
but you are a
One more
better doctor. How art has played or how photography has played?
One more thing, I'll come to that. Of late, I started doing robotic heart surgery. Yeah. In that case, I even don't touch the patient, don't touch the heart. I'll just use the robot to operate. What I'll do is, I'll hold two handles like this in the robo. I'll operate like this. Okay? Whenever I do this, I remember my daughter, who is a Kuchipudi dancer. Her mudras, her movements are like this. Yeah, there is an art there. Yeah. Coming to the photography thing, which
How photography has played a role? Quick.
yeah, in any busy person's life, corporate life, there should be something to vent out. Yes. So when you venture into the wild, when you venture into the nature, that itself is a bliss. Second, it will give patience. Yes. For a shot, I would have waited 2 hours. A bird comes and takes a fish from this. 2 hours I would have waited. Because I was impatient initially. Now I learned that patience. People ask me, how do you find time? Even after 2-3 hectic surgeries, how do you get that time? It's a myth. If somebody asks, you don't have time, I don't have time. No. It's all there in how do you manage the time. Yeah.
No, thank you, Dr. Nisarga. He's truly a heart healer. Not only does the operation, but also through his art, he heals this thing. Such a commendable example, or commendable work and example that how art plays an important role. It doesn't matter whether you're a doctor or you're a coder or you're a programmer or engineer. I know only 6 minutes are left. In fact, we were thinking about, how do we spend, 45, 50 minutes for this. Of course, organizers have reduced the time. Now, quick. Now that we have expanded the scope of the discussion to not just CSR, but why corporate must invest. So what is our suggestion or what are our bold ideas that possibly corporates can take, or say nations will take that as a policy or whatever, to make sure that when we look at, say, 2040 or 2035, that India becomes a cultural capital. We had that heritage of Cholas and others' patronage, and it becomes a very powerful source of soft power, but also we become creators, we innovate through this art and so on. Quick comments, what do we do for the next few years so that we become cultural capital? Hari. Like all of us have 1 minute.
Yeah. So I'll make a quick comment. The case for corporates to invest in art is already made. Yes. Right. But I'll make my comment on the possible risks related to that. Mm-hmm. Right. Commercialization and censorship. All of these are, art and culture is deeply human. right? It's a very primordial expression, a human expression that flows out in the form of art, literature, and culture, right? And you would need the freedom, right? So what's important to watch out is that a significant amount of funding that happens from the corporate, does it result into certain amount of dependency, certain amount of, even if it is not forced censorship, self-censorship from the artists and funded organizations to be in line with the agenda of the corporation, of the power of the day. These are all important things to consider. To give you an example, right now, a global example, there has been protests on the genocide that is happening in Gaza, and there have been huge number of artists who have said that, particularly in Europe, UK, and US, that the institutions that work on art and culture must not receive funding from companies that are connected to Israel, right? To give you one simple example, there are a number of festivals in UK and Scotland that have not had enough funding because of this, because you are dependent on it. So I'll make a slightly counter argument, right? And my argument is this: if you look at philanthropy in India, right, other than the CSR, 58% comes from individual contribution. So my question is, should institutions that promote art, culture, and who need support, should they balance between corporate funding and individual funding? And I would not get into explaining what I mean by, we are moving into a Hobbesian world, where national interest is primacy, right? And there is significant amount of dilution of what you call universal values. That's a reality, right? In such a world, will it be better for the institutions to balance corporate and individual funding? And should there be more emphasis on individual funding? I think could be a subject for next Book Brahma.
Good, this thing. Last word to Sabin, but before that, quick.
If a political house can influence a government politically, if it can make a government, if it can break a government, why can't it change a cultural scenario of a country? That's my basic question. See, you have seen the sports people getting sponsorship from the corporate houses. Why can't it happen for the artists? So in the next festivals like this, I want to see Virat Kohli, we have seen with the RCB jersey, India cement jersey of a Dhoni. I want to see my artists, musicians to wear those jerseys in the next festivals.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant way to say. Last word.
Because of visibility and eyeballs and all those parameters will come into that, because an artist is not telecast, he's not, the world doesn't see him. So that's one. Second is, I come to Mr. Hegde's point of freedom. Yes, that's a serious point to consider. I'm not shying away from that, but even then, I'll stand my ground and say that the corporate should look at art, culture, and literature as co-creation, rather than just giving, charity or giving out of the goodness to support or being the kind of sponsors. I would like to see a scenario where they co-create brands and create IP. Yes, which is more important.
Excellent point. I know time is less. And just last concluding remark, I think all three of you said very, very important. I wanted to have my own comments, but I can just conclude here is that as we are living in an era of artificial intelligence, when machines are becoming more and more intelligent, believe me, what matters to human is that what I think all of us are saying is being more and more human. And the best way to be human or expand being human is through art, literature, culture. I think whether it is individuals, whether it's the corporates, I think we look for corporates because corporates are, have possibly tons and billions of dollars, and they also immensely benefit attracting talent, their brand differentiation, and their own employees can become those IP creators and creators of that technology, which will really transform not only nation but the world. With this, thank you very much, all the panelists. I know, Hari, you had a last point you want to make, but otherwise I'm done.
The only thing that I would say, everyone is talking of what one's aspiration is. My aspiration would be a world where artists have their freedom to make social commentary. They have the freedom without any perceived or direct, framework or pressure to be able to express themselves, make social commentaries. That's the world that you want, whether it's corporate or individual.
Big round of applause to everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for all the speakers.